watching on YouTube. Hello to everyone. Okay, I haven't done this before, so it's very nerve-wracking talking to a camera. I love the audience though. I'm very used to that. So. A brief history of my time in painting. I first did my first plein air painting in the early 60s, and that was outdoors using oils on a block of land that was covered in pine trees and green grass. So I used a lot of green, a lot of yellow. The painting was really probably awful, but I just loved the act of painting. I found it really exciting, and I guess like a lot of you, I kept looking at that painting for hours and days afterwards. And I still get that same feeling of excitement. And it's a privilege to be able to still be doing it 45 years later and enjoying it so much. So it doesn't leave much time for other hobbies, but I wouldn't want it any other way. My subjects have always been my surroundings. Whatever I'm looking at or being involved with is what I want to paint. So from the pine trees and the green grass to landscapes, to sparse landscapes out in Broken Hill, painting trip, a very different subject matter was when my husband and I lived in Townsville for 5 years. I did a lot of underwater diving, and after I commenced night diving, I was influenced very much to paint what I saw with a torch. The coral and the fish at night were just wonderful. So I did a lot of paintings, even up to this size, of underwater, and that took my fancy, with also rainforest paintings, which of course is prevalent up in North Queensland. So that was 5 years. Now I'm back down here, moved to the Central Coast, but I have belonged to the Plein Air Artists of Sydney for 30 years. So we painted the northern beaches, we painted country scenes at Corinda, I painted the Gloucester buckets. Everywhere I go, I take my brush. Lately, Europe, Italy, Hungary, France, all wonderful places to paint. Here, I'm going to do for you today a subject of Glazing Harbour. That was boats that I saw when my husband and I were on a trip down there. He was playing tennis, I was painting. And I want to show you how I approach painting outdoors so that I can be as fast as possible. The light changes, so you've only got 2 hours, I guess, before the shadows almost start going the other way. So I like to start about 9:30 in the morning, do my initial drawing, which I'll show you how I do my fast shortcut drawing. I take a photo before I start. I'll paint for 2 hours or so, and then I'll take a photograph when I've finished. Now, at the end of that time, I can go home, I can load the photos onto my computer, I can print them out, and I can continue completing my painting at my leisure. So that's how most of my work is done. But it's really important to get that first impression down live, because the camera sees it differently to how my eyes see it. I tend to see it much closer, much more vivid. Sometimes I think the camera's wrong, but we all have our different ways of looking at things, so I prefer how I see it live. Now, something I've developed is my sponge stick. I make up what I call my ink, but it's just a Mars black and maybe burnt sienna, mixed in a little film container or whatever you like, just using polymer gloss varnish and some water. So it's going to dry quickly, and it's going to be thin enough to colour the drawing in a short time. So I cut a piece of makeup sponge. It's cut so that it has a lovely point. I've done quite a few workshops and everyone ends up with a different shape sponge stick. But as long as you've got a nice point on the top, then you can push, excuse me just for a moment, push or just screw, just an ordinary skewer into that. Now I know you can buy things on the market that will sort of do the job. They don't quite have the flexibility that I find with this. So I have one already done. A photo taken at Ulladulla Harbour. So I can. This is very messy, so I'll show. Okay, composition. Fairly simple. I'm going to get, these are the bones of my subject. So we have here a background hill. There's going to be some lovely boats in the foreground. My centre of interest is going to be about here. In my photo, this is where this lovely dark triangle with another boat in the background is. Already we have a boat and a reflection. There's a few boats here. So I can get a lovely fine line with the tip of that I'll also show you when I put it in the water. I can get a nice tonal effect as well. So basically these boats are going to have reflections down. I might just put that there. There's a lovely jetty coming out here that all the people walk along, come and say hello to the sailors. Fishermen bringing in their catch. And a lovely lot of warm, wet sand that fills the foreground. Now, just dipping the sponge in the water, I'm just going to fill in that background. You see that all right round there? The advantage of this, of course, is if I was using a pencil, I wouldn't have the strength, I wouldn't be able to get the darks. If I'm using a paintbrush, I can't get the fine lines. I either have a fine brush for fine lines or big brush for washes. This is giving me both. Trying to look at the shapes of the boats only as shapes. Composition, I think, is different. People see, as I've said, see things differently. Their compositions are always different, but I think it really does help to be able to draw. There was a wonderful book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards that teaches your brain how to recognise shapes. And as long as you get the shape of what's behind that boat right, your boat will suddenly be in front of you. So a few nice dark reflections. So no detail. I used to always start my oils the same way. I would underpaint with acrylics. This would be dry in a very short time. Okay, so that's... Hopefully you can see, if I just put a bit of rigging, you'll have some sort of an idea of what's going up. Okay, that's the bones. So that's what I call step one. Now, it's probably better if I show you some examples. These are ones we have done in workshops. So this has got a bit more burnt sienna in this. This is the before and the after. This is my initial drawing that I have just done there. Corrections, if needed, can be done with gesso. So that is a really good record of what's before and what's after. So that's what I'm after a finished painting. So my bones are very loose in the beginning, and then I gradually add detail, and I can stop at any time I want. You know, sometimes it's better to stop halfway. You have a lovely freedom rather than being too tight. Actually, there's one that's even looser, but again, the same effect, before and after drawing. Okay. Now, the beauty of this, acrylics under acrylic, I can paint straight on top. But before I start with paint, I'm just going to add a bit of impasto medium, which will give me a little bit more texture in the foreground. Now, it's a lovely soft impasto. It's not going to stick, but it's not going to stick into lumps. It will mix in well with the paint as I'm painting. But when it's dried, it will give you, I guess, more an impression like an oil painting. A little bit more too, perhaps up in that lovely back hillside. Okay. So I did paint with oils for almost exclusively for the first 20 years. But putting paintings into exhibitions have sections. So there'll be a section of maybe an oil or a landscape. There'll be a section that's contemporary. There'll be a section that's watercolour. So it was really nice to try other mediums. I did try watercolour many times, and I was very happy when acrylics came on the market. In the beginning, they were fairly posterish, very flat, hard to get. You couldn't get any texture with them. Now I'm using exclusively the Matisse structure paints that I can actually put on with a palette knife. In fact, I'll show you how I put it on with a palette knife. I'll move this at the back. Again, for speed painting, I should just show you this. This is my probably biggest shortcut. A fishing tackle box, sewing type box. And for painting outdoors, I pre-mix pastel colours and then just fill the other cavities with tubes, straight colour. The only one I've missed out on is my dioxazine purple, which is that empty hole. I like my darks to be consisting of transparent colours. Then you can't get mud no matter how much you mix them together. So for this dark background, I'll be using, let's say, there'll be a blue in the background, so cobalt or ultramarine. There'll be a bit of red. We'll try a little mixture of those first. So dip into Viridian, cobalt. Now this is going to be such a lovely juicy dark, but it'll have colour in it. It won't just be black. Now I'm just going to have to be careful to leave the areas where the cockpits of the boat are, the boats. It's mixing in very nicely with the impasto medium. This is the back. There's houses, some development at the back. The roofs are just enough to give you some little magic sparkles. The red I'm using in this background is alizarin crimson. Again, a lovely clear red. Okay, let me just get this those boats. I'm going to use a bit of burnt sienna, as I've still got this dark brush, to put the edge of the jetty. Some lovely rocks. Beautiful pebbles here. So the tide's out a fair way. This is lovely wet sand. So the next paint I use will be an opaque paint. I don't want to go into a white paint to lighten the background where maybe sunlight's hitting the back trees. So I'll go to a yellow ochre, just mix it with what I've got on my palette. It will mix in with what's here to make the green. Okay, so it's just a straight yellow ochre. There'll be colour variations where there's more of the alizarin crimson. It's a lot of fun to work fast. It really is. Now that foreground here, it's I think a yellow ochre, maybe a raw sienna with some of that lovely purple. A lovely warm sand colour. I am starting darker than I'm going to finish up, so don't worry if it looks really gloomy. I like a very strong statement when I do a painting, something you can see from a long way away. A bit of yellow ochre. I haven't used my water yet, no. I really don't work this fast at home. So probably by now I would have stopped for a bit more water, but a bit of water. As you can see, I'm placing it really carefully. So now I've got all my darks and my semi-darks, or opaques, lined up. The next thing now, I really do have to wash the brush. Pardon me, I'll just... Now I can start adding white. Focal point's very important, but you can probably see already this is going to be where the focal point is. I'll be emphasising that as the painting goes on. I don't very often change brushes. I like, one big brush that follows me all the way through until the need for detail. I do already have a pre-mixed pale blue and a grey. I'm just going to mix those together. One boat. Another one back there. This is actually a bit darker. Get some of the lights in first. My aim is to show you technique today more than perfect drawing. So if the boats look a bit funny, you'll just have to bear with me. Okay, I'll do the sky. Again, a pre-mixed light goldy colour. It's important where my light's coming from. which is this side, so the sky is lighter and warmer this side. So more of the golds on the left. We get into a little bit of stronger blue on the right-hand side. Beauty of acrylics is in 10 minutes you can go over them and correct, amend. A lovely method is using scumbles. If an area is too dark, you can mix a lovely juicy wash of an opaque or a colour mixed with white. That will lighten an area that's too dark. If an area is too light, you can mix preferably a transparent colour, just pure, that will darken it. If you're adding a pure colour with no white, it is going to darken what you're going over. But to lighten, if I just wanted to lighten, actually that's dirty water, let's have a bit of clean water. Lovely things you can do even at this stage. You want a bit of mystery. Let's just run a little bit of light down. That will dry darker, than it looks now. But just to get soft edges. Okay, let's go on the water. Water pretty well blue. So I'm just going to fill this in quickly. Anything you don't understand or any questions at this stage or? No? Okay. David, no questions? Yeah, okay. Also save detail for the end. So this is nice, broad, filling the paper. Now, I paint on watercolour paper. This is Saunders 300 gram watercolour paper, which is strong enough, thick enough not to buckle. But I love the effect because all these first paints I'm putting on are soaking straight into the paper. They're really becoming one with the background. I do occasionally paint on stretched canvas that has a primed coating on it, but it tends to slip around more. You've probably, if you've all used acrylics, know if you try and put a wet wash on primed canvas, it starts to slide down, whereas the watercolour paper just grabs it beautifully. Now this painting here is one I did at Royal Leicester Show, I think year before last. Now that is so big, that was finger painting, that was using hands, and that was not too shiny, a good primed canvas, but a different method to what I use here. There's a few varieties of blues, greens in the water. Just give a little touch. Come on, Noeline, put the paint on thicker than that. Viridian, which is a phthalo green, yes. Again, lovely transparent colour. You can use that as a scumble or a glaze. Okay, now that's pretty well the paper covered. So that's step 2. Now let me read what step 3. Put a little bit more detail in the boats before I go on to put a little bit more detail in the back hills. So a white highlight has a little bit of sunshine in it. I use a yellow deep mixed with a white. Don't think I need to wash the brush to give me that highlight. You see the difference already. It was only a very pale blue-grey beforehand. There's a lovely touch on that of, again, a light. The back of the boat has a light hitting it, which all gets reflected in the water. Now the front of the boat behind, much smaller boat, back further. And the reflection of the shaded part of the boat is not quite so bright. And that one. There are a number of occasions painting boats when the fishermen will come and sail them away. You put up with a lot of problems painting plein air. So being a harbour, we can have boats facing alternate directions. Obviously, if they're swinging at anchor on a chain, it would be a big no-no. But here, the boats have definitely been parked in opposite directions. Okay, there's also a lovely strong line on this jetty here, which I can get some great details later on. I just want to correct these colours in the front with a bit of white in the colour, that lovely purple again. Sort of a nice wet sand colour. Dioxine, something like that. Yes, thank you. Just sort of found it accidentally and mixing it with a raw sienna or yellow ochre. It's just a beautiful colour. We'll need to start adding a few subtleties soon. The jetty over here is made of sandstone and obviously has more warmth and more light. So, and anything above the water will have a little reflection. Okay, while I've got some of those colours, I'll just get a smaller brush, put some of the houses in the background. That's a bit too small. That one's a little bit too big. We shall make do. Again, houses are just shapes, just little boxes. Looks like there's a road going down there. And just a few roofs over here. Now, if I was outdoors, it would be at this point I would varnish the whole sheet of paper with polymer gloss varnish. I don't think time permits for me to, wait for it to dry, which does seal the varnish seals the paper, gives you a much smoother surface. So when you're putting on very fine lines, it's much easier. You imagine your brush skimming over a sheet of glass. You can get the finest lines, where if it's been grabbed by a coarse paper, you'll get a much thicker line. So, but that's normally what I would be doing, polymer gloss varnish, and then starting to paint the detail. There's a lot of things that also are important. The uses, I've told you, of glazes and scumbles. Now, a glaze will be just used, in this case, to take a little bit of the green out of the back hill. Now, the only red I've got to use is alizarin crimson, because a scarlet or a cadmium red or something would just go very flat. It's great for detail up close, but not to use as a glaze. Glaze actually changes the colour. Now, I don't know whether you can see. Okay, right? That's the colour. A little bit wet. Maybe a little bit early to do that. Whether I can show you on just while that dries. This is a painting that's not working really well. Just going to put that in front for a minute, just to show you while that dries. You don't despair if a painting's not working properly. You figure out, well, what's wrong. Using a transparent colour, I'll use a red again on these green trees. I might just show the camera a blue. This is a glaze, right? Not a scumble. It's making it darker, and being blue, it's sending it back further. The difference it can make in a very short time to a painting. Now this, if we want the sunshine out, here goes my yellow deep, my sunshine colour. So again, just fairly clean water. And watch the sun. It's just wonderful. Lovely transparent colour. So that's just 3 little ways you can change something in a very short time. I might just hold that a little closer. I'll just show that too. This has been varnished. Can you see that? Yes. It has been varnished, but I'll varnish, I'll paint over, I'll varnish again. Each time you paint over, you get a flat surface again. So the varnish obviously seals your surface again, and you paint your detail on the top. But that's just such an important part of painting. This works equally well with oils and watercolours. I do a lot of glazing and scumbling in watercolours as well. But yes, must be transparent colours. That's the rules. Yeah. Okay, a little bit of detail. Now, the biggest thing with these boats is they're not yet sitting in the water, on the water. Let me just find a nice small brush. That one should do. I might, burnt sienna and ultramarine makes a lovely deep dark that's transparent. Okay. Whoops. That boat goes down a little bit more. As I said, we're not aiming for accuracy. A little would be nice. Another boat in here. Actually, no, let's put that boat down closer. That's better. And we can make him slightly bluer. I'm just going to dip into a bit of black here with my burnt sienna. I just want a little bit of detail on this main boat. A little bit more drawing. And on that back one. We'll just do some rough lines. You're very quiet. Okay. Just a few more reflections coming down. Back to the bigger brush. I always like my reflections, paint strokes themselves coming down vertical. A lot of people will paint water horizontally, and then it just sort of wiggles down. Usually after the strength, as I've said, the strength also to carry a distance. I like different colours, so I like to add yellows, reds. They may not necessarily always be there, but let's put a red line on this boat. You just get a bit of magic. There is something on the top of this boat here, a little reflection in the water. There's lots of lines in there. Swap to. Probably a cad red, I'm not actually sure. It's, all my tubes are in my painting box. This is what I use to paint outdoors. And there's so many of these reds that you can use. It's, as I said, it doesn't matter when you're getting to the opaque reds. It's the transparent one that you really need to be aware of. Now I'm going to almost do a scumble here because I want that wet sand to be showing in that water. Now, even though I'm painting it over the top, hopefully when it dries, it's going to look like the sand's underneath the water. And if it doesn't, just a couple more reflections over the top should fix that up. Hone in on a little bit more detail. Just some filling in of that background. More boats back there. A little bit of rigging. What else can I tell you about acrylics? We haven't. Well, there's 7 days in a week. And
7 nights.
That's right. Quite often, yes. More often than not, you're right. And I don't just paint a painting once. As I've said, I will go over and over until all of a sudden you know it's finished. But too often people will give up when the painting is just at that stage where, it's ready to start. All these little things, if you can remember, you have to be able to find out what the problem with your painting is. It helps to hold it up in front of a mirror, try and look at it objectively, hold it upside down. Is the eye going to the focal point? I guess that would be my first, point when I'm looking at criticising my painting. If my eye was going down here instead of there, that would be where my problem is. Often it's your favourite little bit, but it's not necessarily the right bit. Try and think of your focal point. Keep going until you get it. That's the beauty of acrylics. You can keep going. You don't get mud. Watercolour, you have a definite finish by time, and oils too. It's very hard because the longer you work over oil, the flatter the paint gets, the more oil you need to add to keep that gloss. But acrylics is very forgiving. As I say, I keep using the polymer gloss varnish in between all these workings, coats or whatever. And it's rewarding. I've never had it crack, no. No, I'm watering it down if I'm doing glazing and scumbling to correct problems. But watering it down or thick, there's not a problem. I've even painted little hand-worn brooches with acrylic onto a thick cardboard and once accidentally put it through the washing machine. Now, it had polymer gloss varnish on top. The painting came out. The cardboard had totally disintegrated. And this gorgeous little painting, just in the paint itself, vinyl, whatever it's made of, I'm not quite sure, polymer. And so it's pretty tough stuff. What I made this mixture with, you can use whatever colours you like, really, but obviously the darker the better. As I've shown you with this one, we've had a mixture of burnt sienna. So this was a fairly simple one too. This is Bateau Bay. So you can see the browny sepia look of this, which, Oh, okay, okay. So you do recognise the point? Yes. That's. Yeah, it's all right. Burnt sienna and black, mixed with enough water so you can shake it, and a little bit of polymer gloss varnish to give it that bit of sheen, whatever. Yeah. So, see, that's about a 3-4 minute skeleton. Yeah, the bones of that. And I like to keep that on the sides to remind, me, everyone else, what the sketch was like in the beginning. Okay, let's just do. Anything else I can help with?
You prefer to paint on the 300 gram watercolor paper from the samples?
Yes, I do. Yeah, because of the reasons I've said, it soaks in, becomes part of it, is very sympathetic, and then of course putting the varnish over means I can paint on top and get my detail. Okay, there's some nice warmth in the background here. I don't know whether I can I'll try and put a little bit of varnish over. It should be dry to do that, yes. Little bits are. Just to show you how I put it on, very carefully. It also brings back the glow of your colour, very similar to when you're oiling a timber table. You see how timber table, when it loses its gloss, you put a bit of varnish back on and it comes up rich again. This is exactly what happens when you're adding your varnish. Makes your blacks glow. Yeah, I'm being a little bit premature here, I think. That should be starting to look more like this is now under the water. Okay, let's work on this foreground a little bit more. I'll just put a little bit of varnish in with that. Yeah, it's a lovely, yummy colour. Not mixed too much. Again, just a yellow ochre and the purple raw sienna. Okay, it's starting to come together. A few more highlights back. The painting over here I did of the fishing co-op at Kiama. Standing there painting that on the windiest day, I ended up having to attach a heavy bag to stop this box from being blown over. But that also has the advantage of opposite colours. The salmony, orangey colour of that building against that really rich turquoisey blue gives you a lovely, strong statement. And a vibration, you get a colour vibration when you've got opposites. And again, that lovely black hill, far more houses on top of that than we've got here at the moment. And a nice lead-in, which the composition of that helps. But I do quite a few boats. Okay, just that back to the white for the... Let's get just a little. Get just a little bit of water coming in on these rocks. As I said, composition is a very personal thing, but if possible, take your own photographs. Paint outdoors as much as possible. Okay, let's get some of those little rocks in the water. Again, I'll go to my black. Nice, strong. Does anyone have any problems that they are experiencing with acrylics that they want to talk about? Well, as I said, the structure paint is a lovely paint. It suits the way I work. Oh, could be faster. Could be faster. Yes. But looking up close, I'll show you more towards the end. You'll find it's pretty rough, but it's the rough bones that are important. You can always go back and tidy up and, put your little life buoys and things on the boats. And I think there was a nice crane or something up here. But again, it's going to be just a blob of colour. Let's get some more colour in somewhere here. Yes, don't start a new one. Get out something that you're perhaps not happy with or don't know what to do next.
I think we're all going to go home and look at all their paintings and think we're not happy with them.
Well, if you don't do something about it, Now, a nice fine... Boats are lovely because of the verticals, the masts and diagonals really add some excitement. There's some gorgeous masts over here too. Again, because it's going on thick, rough paper, it's not going on as fine as I'd like. But
What you're saying is that you can draw bones from there, you get the colour.
yes, definitely, exactly. We need another little boat in there, but I think we'll stick to what we've got for the composition. That boat can have a... I alter it depending... Yes, on my viewpoint, I like things to lead into the painting. So I guess more often than not, my viewpoint or my focal point is probably on the left. You'd have to look around to see, I guess, whether you can focus on this one. Viewpoint is leading up because we read from left to right. I like my light coming from the left. It doesn't always work that way. Viewpoint on this one, see, now it's bottom. It's very often in that traditional where the thirds intersect. That one's a bit different. Yes, my fishing co-op. But yeah, it depends on your subject. I try and be honest and, paint what I'm seeing, not to manipulate things too much.
When you started to put impasto on,
Yes.
do you use gel medium or do you always use impasto?
Oh, I use gel medium as well. It's a softer, very similar makeup, I think. But, yeah, the impasto I find, the longer I keep it, the firmer it gets. I mean, don't we all? Just a few colours here. A little bit of... That's a really funny looking boat.
So you always, when you do a black, you don't mix it back into the space.
Just dipping straight into a Mars black, or a carbon black, I think this is. Again, I'm not too sure of the difference. Just a few reflections. I honestly can't tell much difference. No, that's really what I'm picking up. Titanium white, of course, is always, some things I have the rules on, but I just need to break that up a little. We can just put a couple of figures up there and... No, that's too big for figures. You could put a figure there, not too far away from the focal point. Just have someone there. This is, an indulgence. Whoops. Now, he could be just fiddling around in the water. And a highlight, obviously the way the sun's coming. Just again to add just a little bit of interest. What else can I do? Any areas that look, maybe I should stand back and have a look at it from a distance. It's carrying all right. It needs a bit of detail still. Some bigger rocks, I think just a little bit weak there. But I'm happy to listen to any suggestions. Oh no, it's... Okay. One more thing. Actually, I'll use my finer brush. Around here. Just some birds. There's always birds. Fighting over something. A little red beak, red legs. Don't know what they're fighting over, but just a wee bit of stronger colour in the foreground. I can't think of anything else I can do to that now. I think that's probably about finished for the rough stage. Right. Well, that's a really important way of starting. So if everyone can remember their little sponge stick, an ordinary skewer, a little bit of makeup sponge, cut it to a lovely point. Actually, you can even cut it sometimes so it has 2 points, and you can use it for lovely, lovely drawing lines. So that was step 1. Step 2, that was getting the bones, all the darks down. And then adding the opaque colours. Now, I haven't even gone back into that, so that's still from the first treatment. That is pretty well, I think it's carrying fairly well as a back hill with some buildings. Any questions?
With the brush, or whatever colour you've got, do you mix that with polymer varnish, or water?
Nearly always water. Only once did I dip into the polymer gloss varnish for here, just to make it apply a little bit smoother. Because I haven't done the varnish on that area, mixing it in with the paint made it flow on a lot easier. But I don't know whether you... Again, you're a fair way away. Don't look too close. It's pretty rough up close. But yeah, that's the bones. That's it for... I'm happy to demonstrate anything else I can if you can think of something. Otherwise... Brushes, yes, that's a really important question. Because I use watercolour brushes for my acrylics, I much prefer them to a bristle brush. So it can be called a golden nylon. But it's just as long as it's a soft, springy. And I like the flat top. I can then get my buildings, my boats, my masts or whatever. So all brushes, I have one usually, the old size, 1 inch, a 3/4 inch, that's probably a half, then the little tiny one for the smaller windows, these do houses, and then a long rigger, again, all nylon, That's the long one that does the lovely dancey lines. I'll use, obviously, if I'm on a bigger canvas, a bigger brush. That was another one I bought today, but gee, it's a bit tired. It's a bit sick. But, an old friend. But this is just a half sheet, so those brushes are quite adequate. I have only used really two tubs of water, so I don't fuss around by, insisting on having clean water every time I change a colour. I don't like washing the brush. I prefer just to wipe it and continue on. I think it hurts the paint if you get too much water mixed in with it. If you can just keep it as it's made, that's how I think it's meant to go on. Yep. Anything else?
And you find that when you keep the paint in that fishing packet box, that it doesn't dry out at all? Do you keep it in the refrigerator? Or
No. This will keep... Yeah, now on top is a baby wipe that's got 2 or 3 layers. Now I make sure that is kept sprayed. If some paints are thicker than others, I might mix a little bit of an open medium, which will stop them from drying out. But normally not at all, no. It's just the paint, not added water or anything. That will keep 6 months. But I'll open it, I'll use it every day or second day. I also have...
There's the answer, she paints every day or every second day.
Whatever. But also... That's all, yes. Now, see, this is a little mini one. I'm doing something at the moment with figures. So they've got this little mini one, and I've mixed up my skin colours in here. So again, when I'm doing the figures, I've got the dark, the light, highlights. And that's right. And I have a few in between sizes. You can buy them in lots of different shops. Sometimes they have sewing notions in the plastic shop, container shops, or, they can have little screws in them if you're in a hardware shop. They'll have pins and buttons if you're in a sewing shop. Some of the shops have them that just, as long as it's empty, as long as the divisions actually touch the lid so that the paint is not going to...
And have you got paper wipes in that little one too?
Yes, yeah. So again, there's shortcuts.
And when you're not painting, do you put it in the fridge?
No, just out. The only time it really dries up is when I'm painting out in summer and it's, really hot day and there's a strong wind blowing. That I almost have to keep shutting the lid as I'm working because that will form a skin right across the top. But I find that they almost rehydrate. When I go home by spraying that, shutting them, it seems to actually re-moisturise. So it's not really a problem, but if you're only painting once a month, I wouldn't recommend it. But also, again, a small container if you want to just paint little miniatures, Christmas cards. Small container, somewhere half the size of that, is just ideal with your favourite colours. Again, it's fast. Everyone knows how long it takes you to stop, get a tube, undo it. I believe there's a new tube coming out that has a flip top instead of a screw cap, which, will actually save another minute or two of time. Yes.
I've used oil for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to acrylics a few years ago, and I'm really liking using acrylics. And most of the recent works are fairly large. But a few weeks ago, I started doing some 9x5 with the master size.
Yes.
And I found that it was quite a turnaround from going from a really large work down to something 9 inches by 5.
Yes.
And I was finding I couldn't get the same sort of subtlety with the acrylics
As with an oil.
Yeah, have you tried using acrylics on
Yes, I do miniatures with acrylics, and you need to thin the paint down a little. If you try and put it on too thickly, I think you can't handle the smaller works as well. So you have to, thin the paint down a little more. But I know what you're saying. Yeah, I have the same problem with miniatures. But by having the surface smoother, you can't do that palette knife sort of effect on the smaller one. And it is harder to get the finer detail. But subtleties, there'll always be. Maybe oil will have an edge over acrylics with subtlety. But acrylics, of course, with the drying time and the different layers you put on, I think makes up for that. But it's up to you then to decide. But acrylics do call. You know, I've got all the oils in one corner, and this is what I pick up. Yes, just a natural leaning now. Okay. That's it. Thank you, you've been great. Okay. Yes, I do have a website. Or if you just put Noeline Millar, as long as you spell my name correctly, that will come up. Yes, Noeline Millar. And there's quite a few hits, and my website's Millar Originals. Nora Head. Yes. Just up from Baddow Bay. Yes. About 100 kilometres from where we are now.
We're the Central Coast Equity Association, you see.
Oh, okay.
That's the president.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, it's lovely that you've come down for this. Terrific.
Didn't want some tea or anything?
Okay.
Any more people?
Thanks to the... Yes, you want to have a closer look at the... I'll move those, so... Yeah.